If an hour and a half of a grimy Zac Efron sounds good to you, then you might like Gold. Hey everyone, this is David Stark from Watch Our Pass. Today I'm talking about Gold, which is coming to theaters on March 11, 2022. It is an independent film that stars Zac Efron, Susie Porter, and Anthony Hayes. It is also co-written and directed by Hayes as well. So he kind of wears all the hats, and the film is actually pretty good. My hot take is I think you should watch it. It is an interesting survival movie that showcases Zac Efron, some very, very harsh environments, and also has a nice kind of like balance of survival and paranoia. I enjoyed it. It's a little slow, but you know what? It's a survival movie, so it's going to be a little slow. So my hot takes, I think you should watch it. So I'm going to tell you a little more about the film, a few things I liked, a few things I didn't like, and then go into the ending. So as you can imagine, there will be spoilers. If you don't want to know what happens in the film, then I would turn this off when I get to the ending discussion. I think I'm going to be able to leave the spoilers to the end, so you don't have to worry too much about that. But definitely turn it off. I will tell you when I'm going to get into the end of the discussion. Turn it off then. So Gold is a mysterious movie. There is not much backstory given. You don't know what's going on. All you know is that it seems like it's a post-apocalyptic kind of world. It's a desert environment. There aren't a lot of resources. It's very kind of like Borderlands or like Mad Max, except without all the grandeur of it. You've got small settlements, people kind of scrounging for resources, people kind of backstabbing each other to get the last little bits of everything. So in this environment, you have Zac Efron just trying to make his way to like a work camp. He received a flyer that basically says it'll change your life in like a few months. And so he appears to be looking to change his life, looking to change the situation. So he's trying to get to this work camp. And along the way, he meets this stranger who's actually his name in the movie is Man Too. So you don't really learn much about him. But that person is going to drive him to this work camp. So what happens is, during the drive, they break down, and while they're trying to fix the car, Zac Efron discovers this like gold nugget that is bigger than any of them have ever seen. They try to get rid of it. They try to like pull it up so they can go and sell it and be rich. They're both very excited, but it's too big. So they need other equipment. And the problem now is they have to split up. And one person has to stay with the gold nugget, and one person has to go to town to get an excavator to come back and get this thing out. And so the Man 2 goes to town, and Zac Efron stays with the gold. Unfortunately, Zac Efron is not a survivalist. He's not very good at this. And so the film is about him trying to watch the gold while essentially the environment and everything around him is trying to kill him. And so that is essentially the film. You get a lot of time with Zac on screen, just trying to survive, like trying to beat the elements, trying to, build up his shelter, and also wondering what's happening. Like, where is his friend? What's going on? Is that a threat on the horizon? So you get a lot of that, and the film does a pretty good job of keeping you guessing. So things I liked about this movie. The first is Zac Efron. I really liked his character, and I liked his performance. This is a little bit more of a dramatic performance than I think you normally see from Zac Efron. He's not as funny, although he has a few little like kind of comedic lines and some dark comedy. But overall, it's a much more serious role. And it's a very understated role. Like, he generally has kind of a more gregarious character, but in this movie, he is kind of quiet. He's unsure of himself. He is definitely not a survivalist. So he makes a lot of mistakes, and he kind of is not very confident. And that is part of his character. That's part of also what makes him, same with the gold, a bad idea, because he is just not cut out for this. And the movie is about him trying to learn and trying to grow as a person and a survivalist as well. But I also really liked how his character kind of, you were able to see a lot of the emotion. Like, he didn't have like a lot of overt emotion. There were some scenes that were, but a lot of it was him just kind of like dealing with the elements and internalizing what was going on. And he does a really good job of that. He really sells it well. And he, there's something about him as an actor that, even though it's him on screen where not a ton happens, you still are kind of drawn to him. And that's a testament to Zac Efron and a testament to his performance in this film. The second thing I liked about this movie is the bleak surrounding. This was filmed in the Australian outback. It is a very desolate area. It's, desert as far as you can see. There's like one tree. There's a few things spotting the horizon, but overall, it is a very bleak surrounding, and it's perfect for this film. So you really get the sense that he's out there on his own, and there's nothing around to help him in his survival quest. Like, he basically just has the supplies he has and what he can scrounge around, and that, I think, contributes a lot to this film, because it really sells what this film is trying to do. And the last thing I liked is the slow buildup. Like, this film is a slow film, so if you don't like that type of movie, you might not like it, but it does slowly build up the threats. But Zac's character does kind of like go from a little bit more confident to more and more concerned about what's going to happen as the film progresses and as the threats kind of mount. But it does take a bit, and it does kind of slowly progress, and that gives you time with this character and also time to watch him grow as he takes on these various threats. The things I didn't love about this movie, but again, like I said, I recommend you watch it, so none of these are really that bad. The first thing I didn't really love is that Zach's character is a very, very poor survivalist, and that is part of his character, but it also seems a little weird in this world where like the entire world has run out of resources. Like there's a scene early on where his character is like he drinks some water and then starts like washing himself off, pouring the water, and like everyone is kind of appalled by this because he's essentially just wasting water when there's not much around. But you would think if he had been in this world and if he was trying to change his life, you would think that he would have a better sense of this. And that's also part of his character. That's part of why it makes it such a weird choice for him to stay behind. But it did feel a little weird that his character would be that inept at surviving. But you know what? You don't know much about this world. Maybe he came from somewhere that had more resources. Maybe he had to flee. Maybe where he was, it was a little better and they had to kind of move quickly. You don't know. You don't know much of the backstory. So maybe that is plausible in this world. But it did feel a little weird for him to be so wasteful. The second thing I did not love is that you don't really get much backstory. And I know that that was a part of what the writers in this film wanted, but I wanted to know just a little bit more like what happened, where Zac Efron's character was from, where Man 2 was from. Like, I just want to know a little bit more, but it's okay. You don't really need it, and you can still enjoy the film without it. I personally wanted to know more. Going into the ending, and like I said, there will be spoilers. So eventually Zac Efron is watching the gold. He kind of builds up his shelter using like pieces of metal he's scrounged around. He makes a nice little tent, but he continually ventures out, which I thought was pretty weird. Again, like some of his poor decisions, like he kept going, like leaving his camp. I expected if I was just watching this camp, I would just stay in the shade and try to not use too much energy. But again, I guess that's part of Zach's character. He's not a great survivalist. So he keeps going out, he keeps venturing out. Eventually, he is exploring this, this plane, this like downed plane that maybe he's trying to like find supplies or find like a more permanent shelter for while he's waiting. And while he's there, there is a raider or like a scavenger that comes upon it. And, she basically like, she tells him to come out and he tries to like get her to go, like tell her to go away. He's fine. And she gets suspicious. She thinks that there's something going on. So she's interrogating him, trying to figure out why he's there and why he won't leave. And so Zac Efron gets paranoid and hits her with a shovel and kills her. I don't think he meant to kill her. I think he was just like concerned what was going on, but he kills her. So he buries a scavenger, but unfortunately, a scavenger, a dead body, brings dogs and other things. So now Zach has to kind of fight them off, hide her, but he also becomes super paranoid as well. Like he starts to kind of wonder where his friend was, why is it taking him so long? His friend calls, and like during the call, there's like a car coming. And he gets like super paranoid about what's going to happen. So probably a good instinct because his friend had been gone for a long time. But also, you would think that his character would be like excited. He'd be like, "Oh, you're here! Like let's go." But he starts to get very, very worried. Now, eventually, there is a big sandstorm, which essentially just kind of it's a really cool scene because you can't see anything and it destroys the house and also kind of makes Zac Efron's character pass out. And so he wakes up after the sandstorm with just like a stick jutting out of him and obviously in pain. And also he's a little concerned because he can't find the gold. Like the sandstorm whipped up all the sand, and so the gold is now hidden as well. So he crawls over to where he thinks the gold is and then passes out. Now, when he wakes up, he realizes that he's got a problem here. So he builds a fire, pulls a stick out somehow, and cauterizes the wound. So this is part of his, progression. This is actually a pretty good survival instinct for him. So he's finally starting to kind of like get some survival aspects. So after he cauterizes the wound, he like rubs ash all over his face, I think to block out the heat and maybe also to cover up his wounds, or maybe it's just like war paint. Maybe he's just kind of like becoming one with the wilderness. And so he passes out, and there's someone with a crossbow there, and that person is the stranger that he killed earlier. She gives him some water, tries to like see if he's okay, and then she leaves. He wakes up again, and he hears that satellite phone that his friend had left when he went to go get the excavator. And so he like tries to find it. It's buried in the sand because of the sandstorm, so he doesn't really know where it is. But he finds it. He picks it up. He starts talking to him, and he's kind of delirious at this point. And he's kind of like saying, "I can't see her. I can't see her." And his friend, who was clearly driving, probably with the excavator, says like, gets really paranoid, like, what's going on? Like, who is she? He's like, has she seen the gold? Has she seen the gold? Get rid of her, get rid of her. So Zac Efron kind of goes to the gold, crawls over. He is like clearly in pain, and he covers up the gold with some sand. And luckily he did that, because just as that's happening, he hears the stranger off to the side, and she basically comes up to him. So she says, you need help. There's a watering hole not too far from here. I can walk you to it. But she, her character isn't super compassionate, so it sounds a little sinister when she's saying it, but she seems to be wanting to help. And he says to go, like, get out of here, go, because he's trying to get her away from the gold. And then she says, so you didn't see my sister. So we find out that this is actually like the twin sister of the person he killed. And he says, go. And throughout all this, we see the dogs kind of off in the distance digging in the ground. And this is where Zac Efron's character hid the body of the first stranger he killed. And so, he really just wants her to go. He doesn't want her to be around for either the gold, or also if the dogs find that body, she's going to see and probably get very upset, probably very suspicious. So he just wants her to get out of there. So she does. She looks suspicious, but she does eventually leave. And Zac Efron's character passes out like on the gold. He wakes up surrounded by fires. So the implication here is that, the stranger set the fires to make sure he wouldn't get eaten by the dogs, but then left. The fires have like kind of burned down. They're smoldering. And unfortunately for Zac Efron, there's like dogs all around the perimeter. They see him. They see like he's like close to death, and they're getting ready to attack. The fires seem to have been holding them off for a little bit, but now they're almost out. So now it's just basically Zac versus like 6 dogs. It doesn't go well for him. He tries to like fight them off, but they keep, biting at him when his attention is turned away. And he like tries to call his friend to like yell till he needs to hurry. His friend doesn't answer. He eventually throws the phone, and eventually the dogs just like attack and they take him out. But while this is happening, we switch to a view of like a person watching him with binoculars, and it's his friend, the man too, watching from like a hill that's just off in the distance. So he's been, we're not sure how long he's been there. It could have been that he got there and saw how bad it was. It could have been that the stranger scared him off. Like, we don't know what happened, but he is watching Zac Efron get attacked by dogs and then get killed. So I think the implication is that he either always wanted to have Zac Efron's character die, like went and got the excavator and came back quickly, or I think probably what happened, because there were some definite like notes of panic when he heard that there was a stranger there. He probably came back, got nervous, wanted to be a little bit of ways, and saw like an opportunity. He saw Zac Efron's character close to death, surrounded by dogs, and he saw the opportunity to be like, hey, like if he dies, I get all the gold. So I think that's probably what happened, but we don't really know. But he's watching Zac Efron's character get killed. And so he dies, he gets eaten by dogs. So then his friend, man 2, pulls out in the excavator, gets down to where the gold was. Oh, and also there was a really great part of this scene where the dogs eventually attack Zac Efron and they pull him away. Like they're dragging him out of the circle of fire. So they're just trying to get him away from like what is worrying them. But what you see is he gets dragged away from the gold. So now Zac Efron's character is dead. The dogs have eaten him. Man 2, his friend, drives up to the gold with the excavator, is getting ready to kind of unearth this fortune and be set for life. And he hears something, turns around, and gets shot in the chest with an arrow. So we don't know if the stranger saw the gold. I bet she probably did. I bet she kind of either thought something was fishy here, or maybe she saw the gold because, Zac Efron's character was kind of delirious. He might have mentioned it, or he might not have covered it up well. So maybe she saw an opportunity to just kind of like wait it out and see what happened and get the gold. We don't really know, but all we know is both of them are dead. The movie ends, and that's gold. Like I said, I thought it was an interesting film. I really liked the acting. I liked the environment. I liked the slow buildup. So I think it's definitely not going to be it for everyone, but it is a pretty well done film. So that's gold. It's coming out to theaters on March 11th, 2022. You can check it out then. And thanks so much for watching. If you liked this review, please like and subscribe to this channel. It helps me out a lot. Make sure all my new content goes straight to you. And please check out my other content. I have an interview with Anthony Hayes, who is the co-writer, director, and star of Gold. And I also have other interviews, reviews, unboxing videos, and recommendations. Thank you.